We've been starting and ending each of these Bible studies as we've been inspired by the ancient Celtic Christians with a prayer or a benediction that either they used or their current community uses. So, since last week we learned about St. Aidan walking to the area of Northumbria and starting the monastery at Lindisfarne, I wanted to read from this book, Celtic Daily Prayer, Prayers and Readings from the Northumbria Community, that I received as a gift 18 years ago and loved it then and continue to love it today. So here is, it's like an opening prayer invitation. My soul waits for the Lord, more than those who watch for the morning, more than those who watch for the morning. Out of the depths I have cried to you. O Lord, hear my voice. With my whole heart I want to praise you. O Lord, hear my voice. If you, Lord, should mark iniquities, who could stand? Who could stand? I will wait for the Lord. My soul waits, and in his word do I hope. Lord, you have always given bread for the coming day, and though I am poor, today I believe. Lord, you have always given strength for the coming day, and though I am weak, today I believe. Lord, you have always given peace for the coming day, and though of anxious heart, today I believe. Lord, you have always marked the road for the coming day, and though it may be hidden, today I believe. Lord, you have always spoken when time was right, and though you be silent now, today I believe. Amen. We will end our time with another reading from these prayers from Northumbria and Lindisfarne. All right, so first, did anyone hear something last week or read it in the handouts that they especially liked or that they inspired you over the past few days? Anything that kind of stuck with you that you were that you enjoyed remembering or that you were working on? Anything especially from last week you liked? Okay.
I got one.
What's yours?
Mine was, I thought that soul friend concept was really interesting. And actually, when I was writing up the things for the college event tomorrow, part of the reason I put the check mark on there, like, do you want someone to check in with you, was because I was thinking that would be a kind of cool service that we could provide that also resembled that practice.
That's fantastic, yeah. So what Nick's talking about, tomorrow, Marshall University is having their regular beginning of school year activities fair, and we like to have a table to offer snacks and love and support and information on who we are and what we do. And so Nick was making a sign up if you want more information, and one of the things was, would you like someone to just check on you to see how you're doing? Would you like some spiritual support in life? And I think that's a great idea, because as the years go by in our technological age, more people and households become isolated and separate as we talk with neighbors less, talk with community people less, spend more time by ourselves and on our phone. Even though we might not know it or be aware of it, our soul misses that human connection. And I like that you thought of that when we were talking about St. Aidan last week, how one of his mission priorities was a soul friend, or in Celtic, anam cara, that we need other people in life to help encourage us, guide us, give us tips, and share wisdom. And he Aidan liked kind of an older monk, a younger student relationship, where they can both gift the other in different ways. So good. I'm very glad. I'm glad that that resonated and that we'll be using that for the college students tomorrow. It's perfect. This week, tonight, one of the spiritual practices we'll be talking about is taking time to be alone with God. That's why we just sang the hymn, Take Time to Be Holy. So taking time to be alone with God. I think we would all say That's important. But there's no set way to do it, no set way that it looks like. So what does it look like for you? What's your setup? What's your routine? Your schedule? How does it look like for you when you spend time alone with God? Share it out. Shout it out. Give a place, a resource.
Study,
Bible study.
because I feel like, he's part of that.
Perfect. Perfect. That's like the best place to start. Is just, I'm going to read some Bible today and see what it says to me. Perfect. Other places, where do you like to spend time alone with God? Ooh, driving. Yes, very good. Very good. That's a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of. Because if you're by yourself, then you can just turn off all distractions. And it's a great way to practice 1 Thessalonians 5:17, I think. Pray continuously. And that doesn't mean you have to be going like this. You can pray when you're going like this too. So while you're driving, good. Other places. Morning's kitchen table. Perfect. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
When the day is starting, the dew is still on the roses. Perfect. Yeah. Start the day. Where back deck?
My back deck.
Good. Looking out at nature. Good. Seeing some plants and grass. That's a great way to be alone with God. Yeah. Yeah. Martha? When you're walking. Yeah. I think that's a good reminder that you and God are going somewhere. Active movement there. Yeah. Well, 2 weeks ago, we first started talking about how the early Christian monks, the Celtic Christian monks, came over from their native Ireland. So you can see Ireland right there. I don't know if the laser pointer works in the screen. The Celtic Christian monks came over from their native Ireland to Great Britain, starting on the little island of Iona. I'll use this pointer. There we go. The little island of Iona, right there on the west coast of Scotland. And that's where they started. They started a mission, a monastery there on Iona. So they came from Ireland, started the monastery as a mission at Iona. And it was indeed a mission there on the little island of Iona. But also, Columba, the guy who started it, was fleeing Ireland in exile. So it was the perfect time for him to go and start a mission somewhere else, since he had to leave anyway. Do I have his picture? There we go. Here we go. So there we go. Columba, born in Ireland, found Iona when he had to leave Ireland in 563. So he started with just 12 other monks, and it continues even today as a beautiful, wonderful place of spiritual retreat, of prayer, of learning, of welcome and hospitality. And he wanted it to be a thin place. That's what we talked about, those kind of holy places where it seems like the veil, the separation between heaven and earth is a little more thin. So he started the monastery on Iona Island as a perfect thin place. Then last week, we learned that the local king on the east coast, right around here, the local king of Northumbria, who was raised on Iona, wrote back to the monks and said, I need help teaching and preaching about God's love. So, Aidan walked across in about the year 634 AD, and he planted a new monastery there on the east coast, on the island of Lindisfarne. And again, it continues today as well as a spiritual retreat, a place that takes prayer and worship very seriously, a place that welcomes and encourages and teaches. I mentioned it a little bit over the last 2 weeks, but one of the lasting legacies of both Lindisfarne and Iona is that since the monks were some of the few people who could read and write, they made copies of the Bible that could be preserved, and they took great care and attention to make the Word of God beautiful. So the illuminated Bibles and Gospels that they made are incredible works of art in and of themselves. So I've got some Purdy books to pass around. This one is about the Book of Kells, and it's called that because as Iona was growing, some of the monks went back to Ireland and planted like a sister monastery in the town of Kells, Ireland. And it maintained a close relationship with Iona, and they kind of shared a bishop and shared a leader. When the Vikings attacked Iona, a lot of the monks who survived took the holy manuscripts to the monastery at Kells in Ireland to keep them safe and to preserve them. So historians think that the monks at Iona started making beautiful copies of the Gospels, then transported it to Kells, and that's where it was finished. And it's today called the Book of Kells. And if you go to Dublin, they have it there for you to see. So this is a book that shows a lot of the imagery, the pictures, the icons, the figures, just the beautiful artwork that's in, and these are just the first 4 Gospels, like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Book of Kells. Brian, could you just pass that around? And we'll start on this side, Brian, and then I'm going to give you another book. So start on this side and kind of pass it back. This book, when I give it to Brian, he's going to take it to the back, and you can start passing it forward. So just as Iona and Kells were making a copy of the Gospels and making it beautiful with Celtic artwork, so did the monks at Lindisfarne work on making copies of the Gospels and making them beautiful with Celtic artwork. They are called the Lindisfarne Gospels. So this book shows some examples of what its artwork and some other artifacts that were found at the time, and different paintings of some of the saints that had a role in starting Lindisfarne and copying the Gospel. So Brian, if you could take that way to the back and give it to Miss Sue, and they can start looking at that book and then passing it around, just to give you a sense of this is what the monks were working on. Both the Book of Kells and the Lindisfarne Gospels were produced after Aidan, after Columba, after the saint that we'll be talking about tonight. So they were made in like the 700s. And the Lindisfarne Gospels also can be seen today. I think they're in the British Museum, is where they are. So enjoy looking at the beautiful artwork in those ancient Celtic copies of the Gospels. So, just as monks from Ireland started Iona, and monks from Iona started Lindisfarne, that pattern continued. Monks from Lindisfarne then started a monastery in a place called Melrose, Scotland, which was kind of in the middle. So you can see it with that red star in the middle. So this is where Melrose is. So here's Ireland. The monks start Iona Monastery. St. Aidan walks across. It's a long way. Who would walk across there? And starts the monastery in Lindisfarne. And then after that, some monks kind of go back in the middle and start a monastery here in Melrose. So it's kind of like a church that plants a church, that then plants a church, and that then kind of keeps that birthing process going in a really beautiful way, that they keep growing and expanding. And once a place is strong enough, they can send out missionaries to more areas that don't have like churches and monasteries to teach the locals the gospel and to show them the gospel. So it's at this monastery in Melrose, Scotland, that we meet Cuthbert, later to become Saint Cuthbert. Cuthbert. You never meet many Cuthberts. Aidens, you can meet a lot of Aidens these days. It was popular a couple of years ago, so there's a lot of teenagers named Aiden now. But you don't meet a lot of Cuthberts, so we can change that. We should change that. So Cuthbert was born around the time that Aiden went to Lindisfarne. Since Aiden stayed and ministered in Lindisfarne for about 16, 17 years until he died, that meant that Cuthbert was about 16 or 17 years old when Aiden died. Cuthbert grew up near the monastery at Melrose. He worked as a shepherd in the fields, and he had a vision of Aiden's death that then motivated him to enter religious life, kind of like going to seminary and be trained in the tradition of the Celtic monks. In this area, at this time, they didn't have kind of what we think of as like a seminary and a pastor and that kind of standardization. They had monasteries and monks that would then be trained and that would teach other people, teach the locals, go start other monasteries and teach more locals. So Cuthbert moves into the nearby, newly started monastery at Melrose. The ruins are still there today, and begins his training as a monk, spending time in prayer, in Bible study, and working. And as we've seen from the other saints that we've talked about, St. Columba, St. Aidan, intense prayer, intense Bible study, but intense work as well were priorities. Cuthbert would walk from village to village around his area, preaching and teaching, healing people, caring for the poor, much like Aiden did. And you can see the continuation of their like mission mindset from Iona to Lindisfarne to Melrose, from Columba to Aiden to Cuthbert, how they wanted to connect with real people in real life and to help build them up spiritually and in whatever way they could. Eventually, as Cuthbert grew, he became the director of the Melrose Monastery. And then, as more time went on, he became the director of the monastery at Lindisfarne itself. So it's kind of like he's getting promoted. Like first he was the director pastor of this new monastery, and then he gets kind of a promotion to be the director pastor of the bigger, more established monastery at Lindisfarne. Cuthbert was known for his gentleness, his holiness, and his serious devotion to prayer. He was devoted to praying. He wanted to spend a lot of time doing it because he knew the value and the importance of doing it. And when I say he wanted to spend a lot of time praying, he wanted to spend so much time praying that he found a tinier, more remote island that he could live on just so he could be by himself to pray more often. So there's another tiny island next to the island of Lindisfarne where he could just be by himself and just pray all day and spend more time in communion with God, taking time to be holy. So by the time he got there, he already was well known for being a holy person, kind and loving, wise, gentle, caring. So that meant that everybody wanted to come and get his advice, ask for prayers, spend time hearing his guidance. So even though he found a little island off the coast of a medium-sized island just so he could get away and be alone with God, people would still go out and find him to ask for wisdom and guidance and invite prayers for healing. And I'm sure he's like, how far do I need to go to get away just so I can pray? There's no more islands left. I'm out of islands. But that's how devoted he was. He just wanted to spend so much time connecting with God, praying with God all day. It was a defining characteristic for him, but he didn't give in to the temptation of spending his whole life, all day, every day, only by himself, alone in prayer. When he was called, when he heard from people that there were needs, that folks needed help, he would answer the call and he would go out and he would respond. So Cuthbert, in his life, he always had a balance of those two important poles or kind of pedestals. Praying and also caring, solitude but also service, being alone but also being with others. And he saw those two poles as being connected and intertwined. So how could that be? How could it be connected, intertwined? The practice of being alone with God and the practice of being out and working with others. They seem like opposites, right? How could they be connected? What do you think?
I think they kind of like feed into one another in that like time spent reflectively with God kind of influences the way you interact with other people, and the way you interact with other people tends to also influence the way you spend time alone with God.
That's very well said. So Nick said, time spent alone with God affects the way you relate with other people, and then time spent with other people affects the way that you spend time with God. I think that's very true. Like, how would we know the needs of the world and the needs of our community to pray about unless we were out in the world and in our community and saw who is suffering, who is scared, who is hurting? Now we know what we need to pray for. And so we go back and we spend time alone with God in prayer. But also, how can we be our best, our most humble, our most holy, our most filled with the Spirit out in the world, unless we spend that time alone with God, being spiritually filled up and energized? So yeah, I do think that they both kind of play on each other and strengthen each other. The more time we spend alone with God, the better people we will be out in the world. And the more time we spend with people out in the world, the better we will know how to, what to talk with God about. Does that make sense? So, Cuthbert's life shows how holiness flows from prayer and solitude into compassionate service to others, and then awareness of need, how that flows back into prayer. So let's talk about us today and the way we spend time. How can we balance those? Is there one that you feel you might need to give a little more time to? Is there one that you're better at giving time to? How can we balance those two callings in our own spiritual lives? Share some advice for the rest of us. Or maybe you're fine. You've nailed it. You're perfect. 50-50, done. And you don't want to give up your secrets. Okay. It's okay. Is there one that you lean towards more naturally? People, leaning a little more towards other people. I think everybody would lean a little more one way. I doubt anybody's exactly 50-50. Okay.
I feel like I also kind of lean towards the people side of things because it feels like it's very easy not to give credit to the quiet side of things as being productive. Like, it doesn't feel productive in the same way that, like, moving boxes or talking to someone does. But at the same time, it is very important, and I do think it has, like, appreciable effects.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I'm kind of the opposite. Because, I want to get a Bible study lesson ready, the sermon ready. And so for me, I kind of equate productivity with being alone and kind of focusing and reading and researching. And then, what? I got to move some boxes now. I got to help somebody get some food. What a distraction from the real work. Oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
So I kind of lean a little bit to the other. Right.
I've read that Billy Graham's allotted 6 hours a day for prayer.
Interesting. Billy Graham allotted 6 hours a day for prayer. That's wonderful, because then he still had a lot of hours to allocate for being with people and talking to people and preaching. Yeah. That balance is important. Spending time alone with God so that your heart can be filled and energized, and then spending time with people so that you can do what Jesus told us to do. Love our neighbors as ourselves. Feed the hungry. Welcome the stranger. When we do those to the least of his brothers, we're doing it for him. So we have to give attention to both those sides. And it's okay, like some weeks they get kind of crazy. They can get especially crazy here at the church. Like a lot of things can be going on.
Yeah.
Where, like some weeks you're just doing stuff. And that's okay. And just make sure maybe the next week, okay, I need a little more, focus time. I need a little more prayer time to kind of recenter myself. But then, you want to make sure that you don't spend 100% of your time just alone in prayer, because we need to do both. We're called to be the body of Christ out in the world, and so we need both. And in fact, Jesus himself provides, unsurprisingly, a great example for us to follow. So that brings us to our Bible passage tonight. We're going to read from Mark chapter 1. If you want to follow along, there are some extra Bibles in the bin. We're going to read Mark chapter 1, verses 35 to 39. So the heading in my Bible for that says, Jesus prays in a solitary place. And this is right after the section before the heading in my Bible, Jesus heals many. So, he was doing a lot of work. There's a lot of people, a lot of big crowds. And this is what he does next. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house where they were staying, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him. And when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so I can preach there also. That is why I have come." So he traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons. So what does that example of Jesus show us or teach us about that balance? How did Jesus exemplify that balance in this passage? What did you notice?
Did all the things.
He did all those things, yeah. So what were some of those things that he did?
Prayer, went out alone to
Mm-hmm.
pray.
Love to pray. Mm-hmm.
And then he went to preach.
Mm-hmm. Name of the preach.
And then he preached.
Mm-hmm.
And he expelled demons. That's the one I want to do.
Okay. Well, put that on your to-do checklist. You'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think you have to be gifted that, and I'm pretty sure I don't have it.
Sure. There are many different gifts.
Yes.
One spirit.
Yes.
Mhm. Not everyone has that.
Yeah.
What he was really saying
be out there doing the work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whatever that is, casting out demons, preaching, meeting the needs of other people, be about your Father's business.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he got out there. I mean, he went out to multiple villages.
Yeah.
He was doing that work. After he spent time alone in prayer. So the take-home message, if Jesus needed to spend time alone in prayer, we definitely do.
Yes.
So Jesus was one with the Father, and even he needed to spend time alone in prayer. Even when people were demanding his attention, all the healing that he did drew big crowds and made him very popular. If you can heal people's afflictions, you're going to be a very popular person. And so his disciples were looking for him. Where did he go? They wake up, they can't find him. They know that the crowds are gathering again, getting excited about the healings. Jesus is nowhere to be found. He's not in the house. So they have to go looking for him. And they're like, what are you doing? Everyone is looking for you. But he needed to take time alone. Just him and the Lord. If Jesus needs to do it, we definitely do.
Isn't it also interesting that he runs away rather than continues the ministry in that area? I thought that was interesting.
Yes, yes. After he spent time alone praying, he then got active out amongst the people, just not those people in that place where he had been who were clamoring for his attention. Which, to me, that says he was wanting to spread the love and not only focus it kind of in that one place. Where were they? They were staying with Peter's mother-in-law, so maybe like Capernaum or something. So he wanted to make sure that he said he had come to preach, and it's not just in that one place, but to preach everywhere. So he wanted to keep moving, to keep going to more and more villages. And Cuthbert exemplifies that as well. He spends time alone. He wants to do that. He needs to do that. He enjoys doing that. But he also gives of himself to spend time with people, hear about their needs, help them in whatever way he can, whatever needs that they have. And he goes out. He doesn't stay alone. He doesn't stay out. He recharges, and then he goes out. And people respond. They, much like Jesus, they track him down. They knock on his door. Everyone's looking for you, because he was recognized as a man of humility, of holiness, of gentleness, of caring, of wisdom. So he was continually offered bigger jobs. Like he kept getting the promotion. Like he became the director of the Melrose Monastery and the director of the Lindisfarne Monastery. He kept getting kind of bigger and bigger job offers, and he kept turning them down because he resisted. Eventually, he kept saying, he started saying no because he wanted to resist being in positions of power. He preferred to be humble instead. So when he was invited to become the bishop of the whole region, based out of Lindisfarne, at first he did say no, and he didn't want to do it, which is a surprise for me, since most every preacher I know welcomes any promotion they can get or any chance to be in a bigger spotlight or to have a bigger spotlight. Most of the preachers today would welcome the opportunity for a bigger stage on which to stand so more people could listen to all the wisdom that they spew out, give or take. So, what's up with that? Why would someone say no initially to a big job offer? Wouldn't everyone want a bigger job? More notoriety? Bigger salary? Why might Cuthbert say no? Why would anyone say no? You wanted to be with the people. Yeah. And a higher position means kind of more distance, Needs kind of you're being more of an overseer of other things and not on the ground with the people. Yeah.
I think maybe depends on your motive. Sometimes when we get in those big spots,
Mm-hmm.
we get caught up in ourselves. And I don't think that was the motive.
Yeah.
I want to be where the people. So I think taking a promotion would be great if that's the right motive. You have the right reason for taking it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it depends on that individual, then and now, what's their motivation for doing it?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like the conversation you and I were having earlier when, like, Cuthbert recognized my mission is to help people grow by loving them and showing them the love of Jesus. Like, that's what I'm about. That's what I want to do with my work. And he was kind of concerned about getting away and getting that kind of authority and recognition. He did have those concerns. But eventually, after, I assume, a lot of time alone in prayer, he did accept the job as the local bishop, but very, very reluctantly. He was very reluctant about it, but they kept asking him, so eventually he said, okay, if you're going to give the job to somebody, I might as well make sure it's done well. And true to his nature, he served with humility, always, and continued to emphasize missions and that kind of monastic living, the kind of simple monk's life. So he continued to sleep and to spend most of his time on his little private, tiny, simple island. He eventually died in 687 AD and became the most popular saint of that era because everyone could recognize his heart, his integrity, his holiness. He was buried there at Lindisfarne, much like last week. We learned that St. Aidan was buried at Lindisfarne, the monastery he founded. But eventually, his body was moved off the island of Lindisfarne to the mainland of Great Britain, 80 miles south to Durham, the original Durham in England. There was a cathedral there, still is, and they moved Cuthbert's body from Lindisfarne to the cathedral at Durham because it was a more prominent place, bigger, nicer cathedral, and because his body was buried there, it became one of the most important pilgrimage sites in medieval Europe for the next few centuries. So, a pilgrimage site meaning people from all over would travel there to that cathedral in Durham where he was buried. So both when he was alive and even after his death, people would go to where he was and pray. Pray for wisdom, pray for healing, pray for guidance. And that's how powerful Cuthbert's witness was. How strong he shined the light of God's love. That wherever he was, people would go to him and seek God's guidance. Even when he tried to get away and get farther away. And even after he died, they would still go to wherever he was and to pray for guidance. Whether it was originally at Melrose Monastery, or then at Lindisfarne, or then when his body was moved to Durham. So how powerful is that? That people from all over would go to wherever he was just because of the gentleness and the holiness and the love that he exuded. And it makes me think, people would go there from all over to get closer to God's love and to receive guidance. That's what I want our church to be like. To be that kind of place. That people from all over would want to come here because they knew this was a place where they would receive God's love. They could receive some guidance, some prayer support, some physical sustenance, nourishment for their journey, encouragement. And then the more I thought about it, the more I kind of realized we've kind of become that a little bit. It's strange to think about how the tragedy of the hurricane kind of forced us to be the Church of Jesus in a bigger, more real and noticeable way. Because when you really act like Jesus and really do hands-on Jesus stuff, people notice. They can't help but notice. Does that make sense? Do you kind of see that connection? What do you think? Is it fair to say our church has kind of become a place of pilgrimage? Do you think?
I think so, and I think we're still doing that. In
Yeah.
lots of different ways.
Yeah. I think so. Whether it's people in Weaverville or in all of North Buncombe County and Madison County or the ends of Western North Carolina. Yeah, and beyond. And it really is remarkable to think of our holy site as a place of a kind of pilgrimage. We have disaster relief mission teams. We have mission teams traveling here to stay and be welcomed and receive hospitality so that they can go out and do the work of rebuilding. We have people and families coming here to our food and supply pantry. I think Sarah Lynn says that every day the pantry's open, something like 20-something people and families come every day. And they'll come from as far as like Waynesville. They'll come all this way. And it's not what you think of when you think about pilgrimage, but it means that this place is shining the light of God's love so brightly that people from all over come here to be a part of that. From Clinton, from South Carolina, from Lexington, North Carolina, from Atlanta, from houses all around. And that was a really neat realization when I thought of it. But I like it. And somebody had mentioned, like last week or the week before, how ever since the hurricane, it has kind of kicked up our mission, our missional activity of being the presence of Christ in a more real and tangible way. For Cuthbert, as time went on after his death, he had such a big impact in life. Everyone loved him and respected him. So over the years, stories about him, legends would grow. Legends of him healing the sick, calming the storms, much like Jesus did. Legends that said Cuthbert was so connected to nature. He loved nature. He loved being out in creation. Legend has it that Cuthbert was so connected to nature and creation that otters would warm his feet after he prayed in the cold sea. Anybody notice that when I first showed that picture?
Yeah.
No, but those are otters warming his feet after he prayed in the cold sea. I'd wake you up in the morning praying in the cold northern England Sea.
Yes.
It's almost like a Snow White kind of activity, like all the woodland creatures are coming. There's also the legend that when they exhumed his body at Lindisfarne to move it to Durham Cathedral, 11 years after he died, legend has it that his body had not decayed. And you can take that with however big a grain of salt as you want to. I'm not saying miracles don't exist, but I don't know, maybe I don't know. So the word for that is they found his body incorrupt, and they went, oh, miracle! He's so holy. Legend has it that even his body did not decay after death. So there's a picture of them opening his coffin at Lindisfarne and going, whoa, he looks great, even after all these years of being dead. So there we go. In that book that's being passed around about the Lindisfarne Gospels, here's what it says about St. Cuthbert. It says, he lived the gospel message, traveling to wild areas, preaching hope and bringing humanitarian aid. He worked for reconciliation in conflict and reminded dangerous rulers of their moral obligations. He was a hermit who lived a life of intense physical hardship and poverty, a powerful symbol of nonviolent resistance to the injustices of the world, and an intermediary between God and humankind. So that sounds like super WWJD right there, in all the ways. To be an intermediary between people and God, to help them connect with God, to give physical aid, to speak a prophetic word to those in power when they need to be called out on their unjust practices, and to embrace a challenging life, a simple life, a humble life. So a wonderful example of humility, of gentleness, and of how that attracts people. These days, we think, the way to attract people is to be big and flashy and showy, and, smoke and mirrors. But the life of Cuthbert shows that even though he tried to live as simple and as solitary, prayerful life as he could, that in itself showed others that this was a wise and holy man, that we should go seek counsel and invite some prayer support. So I really love that example of Cuthbert. And what I also love, and let's see, I'll go ahead and get Brian, can you pass, this is this week's handout, pass one handout to everybody. The ones on the bottom are in color, so you can decide who you like best that gets the color handout. So on the front, it's got a timeline and some key priorities of St. Cuthbert and some reflection questions and the Bible passage we read. On the back, some general information about the Celtic saints and monks that we've been talking about and others that we haven't gotten to. There'll be one more week next Wednesday, and I might do half and half. I think I might talk about one of these Celtic monks and Celtic saints next week for half of it, but then also have a worship time next week that follows like the ancient worship practices of Iona and Lindisfarne, to have what would be like a Celtic worship service, Celtic Christian worship service. Like their prayers are very rhythmic and very inviting. So I think I might do something like that next week to make it part worship and part conclusion of our Celtic Christian series. And one thing I've really enjoyed about this series, week after week, is following the stories, like geographically following the stories and watching the gospel spread on the map over the decades, over the centuries. We've been tracking how the gospel has spread in Scotland and northern England, places where it hadn't yet reached. So it started in Ireland, even because of St. Patrick, and St. Patrick is on the back. So the gospel reached Ireland with St. Patrick. Then, like 100 years later, it made it to Iona with Columba. Then 70 years after that, the gospel made it to Lindisfarne with Aidan. Then to Melrose with Cuthbert. And on, and then later, and then on, and more later, until right now, here we are today in this holy place. And I love connecting those dots from there, and there, and there, and down to right here. Like we are a dot in that line. Because if we keep connecting the dots that we've been tracking the last few weeks, eventually you get to connections that bring us to us, right here in this room, which is really neat. That's why years ago I enjoyed when we were learning about and celebrating our church's history, to think about how did our church come to be, the people who started this church, where did they come from, to remind us that we are here because of the work and the lives of a long line of saints. Some are related to those saints here who started this place. But that we are now today the furthest dot in that line of the gospel being spread and shared. To kind of see where that line comes from. So I hope that you have felt that too, and I hope that you can recognize that you yourself are now this furthest dot in the line of the gospel being spread, a long line of saints that stretch maybe to your parents and grandparents and beyond, the 8 women who started this church, and earlier and before that and before that. So now, then, it's our job to keep those dots going as we continue spreading the gospel to the next generation. In closing tonight, I want to read Cuthbert's final words to the monks at Lindisfarne before he passed away. So here's what he said. Always preserve divine charity among yourselves, and when you come together to discuss your common affairs, let your principal goal be to reach a unanimous decision. Live in mutual harmony with all other servants of Christ. Do not despise those faithful who come to you seeking hospitality. Receive them, put them up, and set them on their way with kindness, treating them as one of yourselves. Do not ever think yourselves better than the rest of your companions who share the same faith and follow the way of Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.